So that's actually what I decided to do a little bit for this lecture. So when Mirko sent me the subject matter, what do I look for on the competition floor? I decided to approach it a little bit different and actually try to go a little bit more deeper into myself and challenge myself a little bit and challenge my own beliefs and maybe my own decision making, because obviously what do I look for on a competition floor? I'm sure Mirko meant in terms of judging. It's a bit different if we sit down to watch a competition, because we get to see maybe more full performances. We can choose how long we look at different couples. But when you're judging, that's obviously not a choice you have. So therefore, you have to be more focused on your own priorities. So I thought that I wanted to challenge myself and maybe make things even clearer also for myself. So today in this lecture, we're going to try to attack it from a few different angles, because obviously everybody who is joining, we all maybe come from different sides of our industry. We have dancers, we have teachers, judges, we have organizers all involved, and what I saw on the list, everybody here. So I think I want to try and see if I can attack it a little bit from different angles. First of all, just from the point of, for myself actually, how much does it take for me to make a judgment? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then I'll try to talk a little bit about what happens to me while we are judging a competition. What are the different stages of the competition? And in the end, given those first two, we can look a little bit at what advice do I want to give to the dancers. Like I say, I'm a little bit nervous actually today, because it's a very different lecture for me than I normally do. I guess we all have our sort of safe subjects and where we go to, but I decided today to do it a little bit different, and so I can definitely feel it a little bit nervous, which is good. As with anything that we do online, I have to give a disclaimer. Please remember, I'm using my own discoveries, so a lot of these are my own truths, and they're of course personal to me. And I'm hoping that some of them that you will not necessarily have the same, but maybe they can inspire you or make you think a little bit more about your own truth as well. But it's definitely not necessarily that everything I say today is a universal truth. It's more of a truth to me. So, making judgment. What I realized is that I'm affected when I make a judgment by so many things inside of myself. So to come to any kind of judgment, I have to go through a whole file cabinet inside my head, if we can say it like that, both in dancing and in life actually. The first criteria is knowledge. So knowledge is very clearly studied, learned, understood, and in certain places also applied, of course. This means technique, mechanics, and so on. It was very interesting because obviously we judge, I judge Latin, and sometimes I also judge a ballroom competition. And I would say that hopefully my knowledge in the Latin is a little bit bigger than in the ballroom. Yet I find it sometimes easy with, let's say, a smaller file cabinet in my head to make decisions when I judge ballroom. And right now in Hong Kong, I don't know if you know it, but we are just coming out of our third wave of the virus. So dance studios have now been closed for the third time, and they are just opening, they opened actually, less than 2 weeks ago. But in the time, we were lucky enough that if you are staff in dance studios, you are still allowed to go in. So we did some staff training, which was very nice. You know, we did some ballroom training, some Latin training for all the teachers. And it was really fun. And actually, it was very fun to do ballroom as well. And one of the things that I remember we had a Latin lecture. We were talking about just stationary samba walk actually, and Andrew Sinkinson was there, and we were talking about footwork, and we were talking about how the second step when we slide, that the foot slides back flat. And there was a couple who was demonstrating, and Andrew said, "That's wrong. That should be flat." I remember that from my days of teaching. And the couple said, yes, but sometimes I want to feel that. And I said, no, it's flat. He said, yeah, but sometimes he said, it's flat. It's flat. He said, the whole discussion kept going on because that's what I know and that's what I will use when it comes to the Latin being Andrew Sigurdsson. I thought that was a really, really good example of us sticking to something that we really know when we make a judgment. I'm sure this would affect him when he's judging a competition. Our second point is experience. So this has got more to do with also a feeling. You know, it's something that we've seen before, something that we maybe felt before, and you know, we're living with it. It's inside us, an experience that we've had, and somehow we refer back to it when we see something in dancing, and it makes us make a judgment. Then we come to the difficult one, the personality. Now, that has a lot to do with decision making. You know, for instance, my personality is I'm fairly slow to make a decision. Like I said, I have a lot of things to go through in my head. And so it's not always so easy for me judging a competition because I have to go through a lot of things in my head. And so I normally say, are you a head or you a gut person, right? And I remember once I was judging next to a former world champion who is definitely very clearly a gut, an instinct person. And we were judging, and as I felt there was been 20 seconds had gone, he was already finished. He'd already done his marks. And he was just using the rest of the time to confirm that this was actually the right thing. So clearly he went purely by this is my instinct, I feel it now. And he just used the last of the dance to confirm his instinct. Whereas I was with every judgment going through things in my head. So I actually remember after the first dance, I had to walk away and not stand next to him because it was very stressful for me, the fact that he was finished so early. The fourth thing is taste. Now, you know, this is also something very personal. You know, what do you find tasteful? What do you like? You know, this is again something that will affect you no matter what. Then we have culture. I've realized that that being Danish is very difficult. It definitely affects me. You know, Danish people tend to be very clear on what they want and very difficult to move, very stubborn, very resistant to change, and yeah, generally very difficult to deal with. I think Danish people actually. And the last thing is time, and time I think is both time available to make a judgment when we are judging a competition. You know, how much time do I have available to make my decision? Or it could also be, let's say, the time of the world. There could be a certain trend involved that is very popular in the time. You know, even we could argue the timing of the couple being watched. If you happen to watch them in the first 10 seconds or in the middle 10 seconds or whenever we do, all of this, I really believe, will affect us making a judgment. So I think that it's something that's nice to know. You know, when I first got my judge's license in Denmark, I took the dance teacher's exam, finished it, and we had to judge. We have to judge what they call blind judging, shadow judge a competition. And we actually had to do 3 competitions in Denmark, and nobody really said anything. I went to judge the competition, and when I finished, the guy who was handling it, he said, "Okay, you pretty much had the right marks all day. You were just about the same as everybody else. There was one competition where you were a bit off," and that was basically the let's say the judges' side of the education. Luckily, I have some very good colleagues and people that we've spoken to, and this is what I realized. I think that all judges want to do their very best. I think everybody goes out with the best intentions to judge the competition. And I think that one of the things that I learned, I have a very good friend who's a political consultant in London, and he taught me a lot about decision making. And I must say, it's actually been very, very helpful that I've learned more about myself and how I make decisions has really helped me in terms of making judgments for competitions. Sometimes we maybe don't talk too much about it. I think sometimes we don't talk too much about what it is like to judge and how difficult it actually is, or how difficult we find it. I certainly know that I find it difficult, um, and a really tough job. It's something that we all take very serious. So what I wrote here in the end is, what did I realize about going all through all this in my head? I realized that I'm slow to make decisions. I do it based on knowledge. I don't like change. So technically, when I went through that, when I'd written that down, I wrote here, it means I'm an old man. um, and I think all of these things are actually generally very bad for being a dancing judge, because it means you're going to be under a whole lot of pressure when you judge competitions. Because if it takes you a long time to make a decision, and you have to go through a lot of knowledge in your head before you make it, and you don't like change, you're going to have a really tough time and a really stressful time judging the competition. So how do I deal with it? I deal with it in a very, very Danish way, actually. I deal with it by having a system. And that's probably the most Danish you can be. You have to have a system for everything, right? So my system I call different rounds and different criteria. Now, generally, I actually, to be honest with you, for this lecture, I probably simplified it a little bit, because technically I think that for every round I have a slightly different criteria when you're judging. But to kind of make it a little bit easier, and maybe a little bit easier to understand, and also to see a little bit when we try to do some examples, I put it into 3 groups. So the first group that I've used, I call qualifying. Qualifying for me is what we do from the first round, and let's say up until the quarterfinal, possibly the top 48. So 48 or 24 of the competitions, I think we qualify the couples. And what does that mean? For me, it means that it's more of it's a yes or no decision all the time. There's a limited time. You're not entering too deep into criteria. You are not personal. There's not really room for personal preference. So you leave all those things behind, and you just go yes, no, yes, no. So as such, you're actually not really comparing the couples to each other. And to be honest with you, it's not very difficult. For me, it's I wouldn't say easy, but it's the least difficult part of the competition, because you are not entering into too much discussion in your own head. So what becomes important in these rounds, in the qualifying rounds, I think is timing and coordination, really. So the timing of the movement, the coordination of the movement. And I think every experienced judge, adjudicator out there would agree that this is something you can see within a fraction of a second. You can almost immediately tell if it's right or wrong. And I actually remember a story from reading an article in a golf magazine, where they said exactly the same, that all the top golfers, competing golfers around the world, obviously they almost get to play with each other at some point during their career, and they only had to see the guy hit one swing, and they can already say exactly what his issues are, what he does on a good day, what he does on a bad day. They can almost tell everything about him. And I think this is very much the same in dancing, that when we adjudicate competitions or judge competitions, in this qualifying stage, it goes very, very quickly in the head. So as such, I would say that it is actually not too difficult. Now, I want to try and see if we can put out a few examples of this. And just because I didn't want to stand here and be nervous just by myself, and because I thought that you would much rather look at somebody much more pretty and and better at moving than me in these days, I've asked a very nice couple to help me. So I just want to introduce Jakob and Magdalena. Thank you for waiting so patiently there behind the camera. Now, Jakob, can you hear that? They're all clapping. Everybody's sitting at home. They're all sitting at home in the living room. They're all clapping for you right now. So we're going to show a few examples of these simple ideas. Yes, I mean, there are millions of them because it has to do with how we move from foot to foot and from step to step and in between the steps. But we'll show some examples for you to have an idea of what I mean. So we're going to look at first, we're going to do a lock step and going into an overturn lock step. And Jakob, if you start over here so they can really get you in the shot. So we go 2, 3, cha, cha, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. Continue into the overturn, 2, 3, cha, cha, 1. Very nice. Thank you. So now, I want to keep it very simple. So we're going to just look at the walking action coming out of the first lock step and the problems that can happen if we don't execute this walking action. Very good. So, Jakob, you could show our first mistake. Now, remember to exaggerate. Yes? The first mistake is going to be that Jakob doesn't quite make his body weight come out of the first lock step. So he does cha, cha, 1, and he gets a bit stuck here. So now he's late already with his body weight and with the timing. So generally what happens is then we panic and we drive through the girl, and you couldn't see her face, but promise me, she didn't really enjoy that very much. Yeah, you show it one more time. We have, and cha, cha, 1. Oh, no, I didn't quite get there. Yes, this one was even better. She's already starting to look upset. Okay, that's one problem, right? So let's try and see if we can correct it. We want to come out nicely from the walking action, cha, cha, 1 with a nice walking action. And because he's time, let's do it one more time, Jakob. 2, 3, cha, cha, and we're timing the walking action together here. Now, if we see this, we already know, okay, it's going to be okay, right? It means that he has time now to slightly allow her space to dance away from him so he can catch up into the lock step. Very nice. Very good. Yes, we do it one more time. Let's show a good one. You can take your time on the walk, so really show. Cha, cha, 1 and 2 and 3 and cha, cha, 1. Very nice. Good job. Yes? Okay. Second mistake that can happen is that we get a little bit stuck in the second step of the lock step. 2, 3, cha, cha, 1 and 2. And yes, of course, we're exaggerating. This, you will not exactly see this in a competition, but some level of this issue could definitely happen. It could also be that Magda is slightly over delaying the backward walk. Let's try those two together. That's going to be fun. 2, 3, cha, cha, 1 and 2 and 3. Not very nice. So let's try one more time and let's finish with a good one. 3, cha, cha, 1, 2 and 3 and cha, cha, 1. Very nice. Okay, we're going to talk about one more thing inside this. We're going to talk about Magda's hip twist turn or swivel turn here at the end of the overturn lock step. So again, we want to remember we're coming out of the last lock step in a walking action. So we have some timing of body weight through the foot. Yes. Now Magda is going to go over the foot. 2. Yes, this is the first half of the beat gone. She has the second half of the beat to turn, and we replace on 3. Okay, now, I really believe actually inside this, there's space for personal preference. But right now, when we're doing it in this round, we're gonna kind of eliminate a little bit because Magda and I have had some conversations about this in the past. Magda really likes straight legs. So she really likes the feeling of keeping that back leg straight for a long time, which I think looks very good. It looks good on Magda. Generally, if we are trying to qualify through this round, I would suggest that we break things down a little bit more in half beat, half beat. So we have 3 and 4 and 1. It's going to be difficult for you, Mark, there. And good. Let's do it super slow this time. 3 and 4 and 1. Half a beat to get over the foot. Now look, Magda's gonna, you see how her shoulders is already turned because her body weight has danced away from the hand. And now we're gonna bend the moving knee. Yeah, a little slowly. Bend the moving knee. And we're turning later in the beat. Let's try it. Really exaggerate that feeling. 3 and 4 and 1. Bend the moving knee and come back. Very nice. So as such, with this again, although I do realize that there's some space for personal preference, the quality of the action delivered once Magda gets her body weight over the foot and turns on the second half of the beat, I think really makes a big difference. We're gonna show one more step. I'm gonna borrow her again. We'll just go through the New Yorker. So generally, what tends to happen if we are not in the best setup or we don't have the best balance of the movement is that we swing ourselves into the New Yorker. Yeah, I'm very good at exaggerating. Yes, because what happens with the swing is the whole body tends to feel like it's moving as one piece. So the balance of the step goes off. If instead we're still feeling somewhat of a diagonal walking action on this step here, our shoulders start to create the turn, yes, and then we still allow that knee to bend. So we are now dancing ourselves not much more nice towards a check forward walk here, yes. Now we'll replace, okay, and now we'll do the same. So as we bend that knee, the hip rotates, yes, and you see the lower half of the body rotating this way, and the upper half of the body will rotate the opposite way. And therefore we get balance in the body. So not moving everything at the same time tends to create the balance that we want in the body. Yeah, so 2 simple examples of steps that I think you'll agree you see pretty much all couples do. And an example of, as a judge, how you make a decision, within, a split second looking at this. So that was our first part, qualifying. Now, the second section, I call adjudicating. Again, it's just names that I've given it. Okay, I'm just using them. But it's just so that they're clear in my head. Again, being Danish, being clear in my head, it means that things fit into boxes. So, the fact that I can put something into the qualifying box and now I can bring out the adjudicating box makes things easy for me to deal with. So adjudicating for me is 48, let's say, until the final. So we are still in a yes or no, right? We're still giving marks, but there's no doubt that now there's more comparison needed. You actually start to compare couples much more against each other. Everyone has now got a certain level. So let's say that some of the decisions you are making, there's very little difference between the couples. So that means we have to go deeper into criteria. We have to look deeper at our own criteria, or let's say the given criteria that we have from our knowledge. I think some personal preference becomes involved at this stage, especially, let's say, if we're marking 12 to 6 or even 24 to 12. I do think that personal preference starts to become involved here. I think it is okay. And then I want to say that, as you can probably tell from everything I said, this is probably the hardest rounds to judge for me. I really feel that there's a lot of pressure because the difference between the couples is not very big. So as I'm going through my file cabinet in my head, I do feel this pressure. And it's often when I finish the competition or and I come back to the hotel room, these are often the rounds that I really think about. Whether or not did I get that mark exactly right or not right. So I find this one to be definitely the most difficult rounds for me. So we're going to look at a few examples. I decided to make these examples now a little bit more based around partnering, to give us ourselves an idea about that this is also a time when we actually get to see this. This is a time when suddenly partnering starts to come through. Of course, it also comes through in the first round, but I am more affected by it in these rounds from the 48 up until the final. So we're going to look at two steps inside here again. We're going to do the back basic. Now, similar to before, Jakob, if we don't get a good, we're going to do rumba now. If we don't get a good rumba walk here on the 4-1, let's try. So we have, and 4, yes? Now, if we don't manage to get a good rumba walk, a good sense of the body weights timing together, yeah? Let's do it again, and let's not delay this time, Magda. Let's dance onto the foot, and that, and the sensation of the body weights timing together here, I think is very important. Now, come up here. We'll do it a little bit closer to the camera so we can see something. And let's do it very straight. So we go 2, 3, 4, and 1. So the good rumba walk means Jakob has now completed his rumba walk. So his body weight is somewhere around the ball of the foot on his front foot. Magda has completed the weight transfer to her back foot. So her body weight is somewhere around the ball of the foot of the back foot. So naturally, inside here, we are now closer together. It means that Jakob has actually come closer to his own hand, if we see it. So the allowing lead, I think for me, clearly starts here, because the mechanics of the check forward walk now says that Jakob is going to slightly advance the left foot in front of the body. So when he does that, it means that he's slightly allowing the hand to dance away from him. Yeah, and that is how Magda already from now actually knows that we are not continuing with another rumba walk, we are changing direction. Okay, now inside here, Jakob now, I normally say, Jakob has 55% body weight on his back foot, 45 on the front foot. So he has almost no weight change, only the amount of weight change that he gets from bending the back knee. And Magda, on the other hand, has a lot of space. Yes, because she's going to allow the body weight to travel towards the heel. So we are completing the allowing lead on this foot to help her to change direction. So we'll try that one more time. So we go 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Very nice. So that sensation of the weight moving between each other, the sensation of the allowing lead, I think is very, very important. I want to tell a funny story actually from a lesson that I had with Hazel Fletcher, who I think is an amazing teacher and who certainly helped me a lot. And those of you who've been to Hazel's studio, Alan Hazel's studio, knows that it's in the house. And we were dancing the back basic, and I did it with Hazel, and she was very much complaining that I was way too strong. I started way too early to stop her here. So she didn't feel that she could dance her weight back. So she suggested to me to try and bring more body weight over to the front of the foot, to find that freedom for the lady to move her weight. And I must say that really helped me. And that's actually why I ended up saying, like I say, that we have 55% and 45% on the front, because that freedom that it gives, the allowing lead to that the lady can really travel the weight back here. And I have to say, when I tried it in Hazel's lesson, it was very difficult for me, because I really tried to exaggerate and get over the front of the foot. And that, was very, very difficult for me. So I had to go home and I had to use my knowledge and I have to use my own sensation of what all of this was to find the right answer for me about how much body weight I should bring, I should allow myself to give Magda the freedom. And that's why even now I sometimes say to the man that they should sense the allowing lead through the bending of the back knee. There. Very nice. So I definitely think that this is something that becomes important. This is something that we get to see once we have a little bit more time. We are going a little bit deeper into the criteria. And again, we are using, from the example, we are using existing knowledge and new knowledge in a combination to create that right feeling for ourselves, to find our own truth within the mechanics. We're going to try one more step. We're going to do the overturn. You can show it first. I'm sure you all know it. 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay. So the overturn, back swivel step here. Now, very similar thing, right? We have to be able to control the body weight in order to time the turn for the lady at the right time. So we'll try it one more time. In the original version, 2, 3, 4, and 1. I check. There's some allowing. Good. One more time. Good. Very nice. Now wait for us. Okay. I told you already, I'm very slow. So when you run ahead, I don't get to say what I want to say. Then 2, 3, 4, and 1. We allow her to go back. Don't turn. Just go. Just go. Just go. Then we turn her 3 and 4 and 1. Very nice. He looked very happy there. Looked very happy there. Now, so again, the timing, that little bit, that little space of timing that she gets to travel, that you get to travel away from him, makes all the difference. Now, the mistake would be if we just wanted to turn, and I feel it very much myself, and I know I'm going to whack that turn in. Can you show us? 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Here she goes. Yes. And you see, everybody, to me, I always see it. Even, okay, now we're exaggerating, so it was already very visible from the beginning. But where we normally see the problem with this feeling, 2, 3, and 4 is on this rumba walk. This rumba walk, I think, defines the whole step. In other words, if it comes to judging, this is where I mark once I see that rumba walk. Because if we get that perfect balance of movement coming through that step, 3, and I get the sensation again of the weight traveling together, then we know, okay, that's it. Don't need to look at anything more. It's marked. Yeah? So we try a good one. Magda, wait for him. 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and receive her weight. Very nice. Very, very good. So I wanted to try and show a little bit, because this is one of the steps where actually in the last year I might have been slightly convinced that personal preference is maybe okay here. Not that I really would do it myself or teach it myself, but where in the past sometimes I would definitely not have been for it. Now I actually see it sometimes and I really like it. It is the sensation that we are using a slight lifting action in the overturn. So it would feel like, yeah. Now, normally, like I said, this is definitely on a very high level of dancing, but I think it has some merit. I mean, we have to be honest, Ricardo and Julia do it absolutely fabulous with this lifting, breathing sensation in the step. And obviously, it suits itself very much to music being slowed down over the last few years and us having a little bit more time on the steps. So we have found maybe some new stations inside the step that we can go through. The danger is if we do it and we stay up, not brilliant. right? So it's very much dependent on the fact that I find inside here the time for making sure that she gets settled first. So I have to steal a little bit of time here. I think I have to get her a little bit quicker into this to lift her. And then I definitely have to make sure that she lowers again before she comes into the next step. Yes. And again, as you will see, Magda really likes straight legs because you can see her own personal preference, for instance, in this step is a straight leg on this step. Technically, I would always try to teach a slight bend knee as we are coming out of as we're coming on a half beat. So technically, I would always try to teach that. But again, while we're doing it this slow, we don't have any issues, right? Because in this speed, no problem to create that. Now, the more we speed it up, the more difficult it becomes, right? Again, you can't see her face, but she's holding on for dear life. So I would technically say, let's try, in the beginning, for sure, a slight relaxed knee so we are able to complete a beautiful rumba walk on the last step. Maybe as we're getting to a higher and higher level and we're able to execute it with a straight knee, again, I would, as long as we are completing the rumba walk beautiful, I would definitely still mark it. Now, shall we just try this little step with music? Yeah? So we'll try the normal one first. So without the lift. And then we'll try and see if we can do it with a lift. 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, good. We have it a little bit slower. One more time, but no lift. 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Very nice, very nice. Now let's try with a lift. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Very good. Jakob, try it one more time and let's try and see if we can get her a little bit settled before the lift. 2, 3, 4. 2 and 3 and 4. Good. Very nice. Yes. So it requires quite a lot of the allowing lead, right? We'll do it one more. I'll attempt one time with music. Right? So the regular one, 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1. Yes. And with the lift, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1. Yes. So that lowering before has to be very quick in order for us to actually maintain the quality coming out. Yes. So a few examples again of different preferences that I think come into play when we are in these rounds, the adjudicating rounds. You know, you can give them your own names, of course. So the last one, I call it placing, because essentially that's what we do in the final. Now here everything is about comparison. Yes, because technically everybody in the final are brilliant dancers, right? We think. So we need to go deep into criteria. We need to compare, and we need to look at our, the couple's own personal preferences, my own personal preferences, and let's say I think we are allowed to use emotion here as well as judges, right? If somebody moves you, if somebody makes you feel something. So let's say this is the round the round when I'm the most open to being impressed and to see the expression of the couples. It's also a very difficult round to judge. I find that very often I change my mind quite a number of times through this round. Actually, very often when I judge, I, I, I can't write the numbers down. Hopefully, if it's a long competition, I already know all the numbers and they're in my head, and I can wait until the dance is finished and the music is off, and then I feel comfortable enough to write the numbers down. That works best for me in order for me to again go through the file cabinet. So in other words, this is the round where we really want to see stars. And for the dancers out there, these are the rounds, the last rounds, when you really have to make us feel something. You have to make us feel what you feel. Now, I think that's generally important all the way through, because you are not necessarily just dancing for the judges, you're dancing for the audience and for yourself. But that sensation that your job is to make us feel what you feel. I use the example always of a roller coaster. If you're standing on the ground and you're watching the roller coaster go, as it goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and it comes over the edge and it goes down, you can feel it in your stomach as if you're sitting on it. And I think dancing should be like that. I should feel like I'm dancing with you. Even when I'm busy with my file cabinet in my head, I think you should be able to break through it, smash up the file cabinet and make me feel something. And I think it's happened. And I think I've heard these stories and I felt it myself, that couples that maybe you would not normally think should get these results, but because they do something special, we mark them special. And I think this is very important. So, I think it's important in every round, to be honest with you. But let's say from a judging point of view, this is really the round when I can be hit in the stomach with these things. So let's say, if we look at dance examples of this, it becomes very important about who is the couple, What is it that they want to say? And from a teaching point of view, how can I help them to say what they want to say? So in other words, everything has to come into one beautiful combination, right? The intention of the step, the action, the timing, the use of the space. Yeah, we have to have that feeling. So we will try and do one of your own steps, and then we'll see if we get the idea of what is it that you think is special about it. No music first. Yes, let's show first. Chia. Okay, so closing the feet there and into the. Okay, now very nice. So now normally we could ask a lot of questions, but time permitting and so on, I would definitely like to know what they would say. But I will talk a little bit more about actually what I see instead. So can we try it again? So in this case, I would say that Magda is a little bit ahead of Jakob here, right? She's doing it and he reacts to it. Yes, that sensation of the handhold. Wow, really important. Can you do that one more time? Let's come a little bit closer. We can show them a little bit closer. And Magda's turn. And the handhold, the way we connect that hand to breathe together. And again, the beautiful rumba walk. She dances out of the picture. It's okay. We can still feel her. Okay, and then this little bit, let's call it somewhat of an overturned straight leg hip twisty. We have to give it a name, something, right? Here we go. And the breath into it here. And the exit. Very nice. Very, very nice. And actually, when you dance it now slower, or maybe because it's the second or third time, so the nerves are a little bit more out, right? That intention after the back basic, when you come closer, and how you're almost yielding into him and giving him that feeling, I think really speaks loudly. Your hand that comes around. Can we show that again? And breathe together. The back basic, and the yielding to him, and then the leaning away. Whoa. Good. And also, Magda, because of that, now the second 2 times, we managed so nicely to lower the heel on the standing foot before we were coming out that way, right? So the breath going into the the fan position was much better. We do it one more time. Ooh, she comes in, the sense of that turn, and yield to it. And the closing of the feet in the fan. And then the hip twister here. Very nice. Okay, very good. And you'll see actually, of course, I know Magda well, but you will see that the sensation we get from here is Magda likes the extreme. We can feel that, right? You live in the extreme. So that extreme use of feet and legs, she feels very good about. And between them, you get the sensation that partnering is very important to them already. You know, that the more they do it together, the more they seem fulfilled by it themselves. And that's kind of what I believe in, that when we get to these later rounds in the competition, becomes important, is the fact that you can feel that the couple is fulfilled by themselves. And because of that, they get that sensation. Now, you two, I want to thank you very much for your help. It was very nice. You did a great job. Thank you very much. So, in all of this, like I say, this is of course, we always wear different hats, right? We are judging, we are teaching, and the two things always combine a little bit. They cannot not, we were dancers before, we judge and teach, and all of this fills us up and gives us a sense of belonging or being somewhere inside this industry. So I try to use a few examples, and of course you can see that, as what I said, I made 3 groups, but technically it is not really like that, right? The criteria in the semifinal is probably closer to that of the final than it is of that of the 48. But in order for us to really get this sensation of how these things work, I find it very helpful to me to have simple boxes in my head, as I said. It keeps me much clearer. Now, dancers, what can you use all this stuff about? What can you use all this for? Let's say it like that. Well, I think, first of all, insight. I think for you to know that judging is difficult, it's hard, we take it very serious, we really work very, very hard on it. And the insight into that, what goes through our head while we're judging you, I think is something that you can probably take away and use while you're practicing. Now, maybe not too much, because at the end of the day, I think we have to, like I said different rounds, different criteria. But honestly, it's the development of skill that in the end is going to make the difference for you. And developing skill takes time, right? It takes a lot of time, and it takes repetition, repetition, and repetition. I think this is the most important thing. The more you do it, the better you become in it. Nobody was born doing the rumba walk, My wife does a lot of teaching of small children right now, and it is very clear that nobody is born being a full-blooded Latin American dancer. This is something that really happens to us much later. So I think the fact that I wouldn't necessarily think, okay, well, last time I made 100 and something, so I should be only focused on what's important for the qualifying. No, your job is to think about what is it that's going to make me a star once I'm in the final. And that, I think, is very often the simple skill. If you looked at it, we actually went over very often very similar things in the 3 stages. It was just used in different level of dancing, let's say like that, or different level of expression. So the the simple qualities, weight transfer, timing, and coordination, in the end, let's say we judge very much based on them in the first round, but they are also what makes the magic for you once you get to the final. So the last thing I did to challenge myself, actually very funny. I was listening to a piece of music, I don't even know if you can call it music actually. It's by Baz Luhrmann, and it's called "Everyone is Free to Wear Sunscreen." I don't know if you guys know it, but if not, once you finish this, you should definitely listen to it. I think it's the most amazing thing, and it's something that I listen to. I don't know, a few times every year, and it affects me differently all the time. So I decided to sit down and do something called free writing. And I just thought, what advice would I give to dancers? I want to say, first of all, again, this is not in any order. It's just as it came into my head written, and I only wrote it and I put it away again. So I'm gonna have to read it to you because I can't actually remember any of it, which was the idea. But remember, this is only my advice, and as such, it's only my truth. And it's important that you go and make your own truths. So this advice I give, I have no scientific explanation for why it was there, except that it was in my head when I sat with the pen. So I wrote, "Dear dancers, I miss you. Remember, you are amazing. Don't worry about natural, be supernatural. Develop your skill. This is your craft, your life, and your lifestyle. Be hungry, always want more, but be patient. Practice the simple skills. They, in the end, will be what makes you create magic. Simple doesn't mean easy. Spend your time well. You will learn a lot about yourself from rumba walking to the moon and back. Don't think of all the stops. Don't live from competition to competition. Picture it all like a long road. Cutting corners will only send you down a dead end. And once you are a master of something, you get to break the rules." Now, and the last thing I want to say is, remember, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues, my dear friends, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. And I can't wait until we all get to be together again in this magical dance world of ours. Thank you so much.